Okay. We're going to call the Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022 Board of Education meeting back to order. Everyone please silence your electronic devices and we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Additions and deletions to the agenda since Friday mailing.
I don't have any additions or deletions, but I do have a correction to 7.8. It's just going to change her effective date to March 2nd.
Okay. We don't need to approve that, do we? Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, okay. Need a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting for February 16th, 2022. Mrs. Klein, Mr. Ross, all in favor? All right. And we have two presentations tonight, the overview of the initial budget, and then food service, transportation, general support budget overview. So we'll turn it over to Joanne and Dr. Bailey.
Is there a copy of these on the counter there too? So for anybody who's out there, I noticed last time a lot of people looking around and not having these. There's a copy of this on the counter if you'd like to take a look at it while we're reviewing that.
Probably 12.
She's just going to read the title page. That's it.
We're going to make a slight change. As we go through the budget process this year, there has been, we're changing the way in which we do it. Transportation, I will not be bringing to you until the next time we meet. Jason and I are working very hard on that, and the reason that some of those things aren't done yet is because we're still making some assumptions. We're in the middle of negotiations with several units are starting, so they're not going to be, but that's not transportation per se tonight. So we're just going to go through what we have up to date right now. So the expenditures to date that I have in the budget right now bring us up to $49.9 million. And one of the things the board asked us to do is to make sure that we identify any changes in program or changes in staffing as we go through the process. So when we talk about things this evening, I'll highlight any changes that are outside of contractual obligations that we might have anyway, or if it's new. I want you to know right now, the revenue when we went through that a couple meetings ago was just over $50 million, and that meant if we use $1.7 million in fund balance as well as $400,000 in reserves. We left that at a 2% increase in the tax cap, which we did submit to the state yesterday. So if we were to look at things right now, we have more revenue than expenditures in the amount of $534,000. So I wanted you all to know that at this time. Now, what's important to know as we build the budget, there are still some data or some information and assumptions and data that I don't have finalized yet. And I want to give you an idea of what they are. Negotiations, we have to make some assumptions for CSEA, SERPA, and the Administrators Association. So we're working on that now. So you'll see things will be built into the budget to accommodate negotiations. I don't have the BOCES bill finalized yet, and we're working on it as we speak. We met with the secondary schools and the elementary schools to discuss their program and their staffing needs. We'll be bringing that to you on the 16th, any changes in staffing and programs on that date, so we're working on that as well. And yet not all the department budgets are finalized. Sue Harrison and I met with we participated in the faculty meetings at the elementary schools today just to give them an overview of what we're trying to do as far as student supplies go. So when we get all of those budgets in, they'll also be impacted or inserted into the budget figure. I don't think we're going to be far. I don't think there's going to be a huge gap that we have to close, but we'll have a final solid, a really solid number on the 16th.
Just went through, are they included within the current expenditures, or are they outside of that?
They are not included in that current expenditure figure at this point.
Joanne, does the budget process this year incorporate rescue funds that are not sustainable, or is that completely separate?
That is completely separate. If you remember 2 years ago, we had that first round of ESSER money that was the only small $245,000 that was part of the general fund, and even that was treated separately because we increased the budget for that. All of the other CARES Act money and money that we've received will be accounted for separately in the special aid fund. So it's not even part of this general fund. It does not play a role in the tax cap or taxes or any of those revenues. To totally stand aside.
But as far as a budget, are the things that you are designating those funds for a part of your presentations to know how they affect students next year?
They are not, but that's a good idea. We can do that update as we get into April. We can do that, okay? So you know exactly what we have in those funds and what it's been identified for. And then I just wanted to break down. So tonight we're going to focus mostly on the general support, which is the business office, the office of the superintendent, and we're going to do employee benefits and debt service at this time. So the clerk budget, I'm just letting you know, I'm including $10,000 for an additional board meeting if we were to hold a vote for a capital project at a time next year other than May. We want to have enough money aside for that. If we did decide to do a big project and we approved it, those funds can be offset by the capital expense. So you can, we can reimburse the general fund if something was approved. If it wasn't approved and we put a large project up, then that would be an expense that we would have to have, and it would stay. There'd be no making up for that. Other than that, there's no major change there. Superintendent budget, it goes through all the expenditures related to the superintendent, and again, anything in that budget is a contractual obligation. We had a staffing change, so we reduced the salaries, so it's a net decrease to the superintendent's budget. Again, nothing big there. The business office budget, we have a couple of different items for increase. We are allowing an increase in staffing of just under $100,000. We have in the process of an audit for the business office to determine the staffing needs. We've talked about it as a board before, having someone to assist in the business office or as an HR capacity, not an HR department, but in the HR capacity, maybe share some of the responsibilities as we transition into doing procedure manuals, all those that we need additional staff. I still think we struggle from the business office being excised 7 or 8 years ago and then bringing it back in. We lost all of that knowledge and the length of service those people had. So we're still in the process of building that back up. We certainly do need additional staff in our department. I'm allowing for an increase for a contract for a procedures manual. We have a gentleman that's a retired business official that is willing to help us next year develop procedures manuals so that when we have a staffing change or when people leave the district, there's a set process for them to come in, to do the job, and to know what's expected of them. We haven't had time to do that since I've been here, and it is critical to continued operations in the business office and for the school district as a whole. Many of you may not know this, but at the district office, they are renovating the last room on the upstairs. So we have the whole floor upstairs. We went from downstairs. We took the upstairs space. They had one office left to renovate, so they're doing that now. We're working on it. We're not sure how we're going to divvy it up, but we certainly do need additional space. So I'm allowing $5,000 for furniture for that new space if we need it. I said again. And other than that, there's no tremendous difference in any of that budget. We're going to evaluate the BOCES office because the BOCES expenditures, because they're not doing the CBO anymore. They help us with payroll right now. So we may be able to reduce that figure. And so again, we haven't finalized those figures yet. But right now it's a $125,000 increase to the business office staff budget.
The new position that you're talking about, will you be going out hopefully over the summer, beginning of the summer, to try to get someone in?
Yeah, if the budget's approved, Bill, that would be something that we would post and want to have hired, interviewed for at the beginning of the summer. Because again, it would be something that would not start until July 1st.
Okay.
The additional budget items in the business office, they're called general support. I'm just giving you an overview of what they are. Now, one of the biggest things that BOCES has done this year is they count how many times I say so I'm trying to not do that. So again, I think I'm at 12 right now. The tax collection service for BOCES has doubled in price. It went from $27,000 to almost $60,000 for the tax collection service through BOCES. Sue Starr, myself, our tax collector Rosemary Coons, and our district treasurer met, talked to BOCES. They have 2 levels of service now because a lot of districts they're pulling out of that service because they had to increase that cost because they couldn't staff it. We were very frustrated during the tax collection process for how long the delay was from when one of our taxpayers made their bill before it was processed through the system. There's no need for that. So we are looking at bringing that back in-house. Rosemary and I met. She's been our tax collector for quite some time. We reached out to somebody that worked in our business office before. He would be more than willing to come back and work 2 days a week, so we would have somebody in that office 5 days a week, 8 hours a day to collect taxes. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody's going to come in the business office to collect taxes, but the bank's still going to collect for us. It's a P.O. box, and we would process all our taxes in-house. We would have control over that, so if we needed to ramp up our staff to make sure things got done in a timely fashion, we could do so. Sue would help. We could do it as a district office instead of be at the mercy to BOCES, and I'm grateful for what they've done, but I still think we have better control over it ourselves. Than there's no guarantee we're going to get anything done sooner than we would. Now, BOCES will still prepare our bills. They'll do all that with us. There's still a service that we can collect our payments online. None of that goes away. It's like there's two-tiered tax collection through BOCES, the $27,000 version and the $60,000 version. We prefer to keep it at the 27 and pay staff to process our taxes. So that's why you see a $12,000 increase there.
What is public information from BOCES? Like, what's that line? Is that something they do for us?
That has, yes, that is stuff that they do for us. That portion of the BOCES bill.
Is it calendar, newsletters?
Yep.
Budget newsletter, chalkboard?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm increasing fiscal agent fees because one of the things you're going to see is the ban that we have out now for our $30 million capital project that's been over the last 5 years, that's going to go to a bond. So there's an increase in that. You'll be seeing the impact of that during this budget presentation. Again, it's still a $26,000 increase, but nothing that's insurmountable. Insurance and tax judgments, it's pretty set. I left the final figures for unallocated insurance, which means that's our liability insurance. We are insured through Utica Mutual. They do our transportation fleet and any of our other liability insurance. I am actually meeting with our representative on Friday morning to go over what the district increase will be. I guess 10%. I don't know if that's true or not, but I put a placeholder in there and I'll update that at the next budget meeting. But again, we meet this Friday to talk about that. He has our final figures. BOCES admin and capital is the only final number that we have through BOCES right now. They set that early, so that is a set number. That won't change. So $21,000 increase on those other items, the insurance, tax judgments, things like that. Employee benefits and debt service. We all know we have ERS and TRS. We have worked on that. The New York State ERS has gone down, and again, we know that we have a pretty solid projection. They give that to us almost a full year in advance, so we were able to reduce that. TRS is a slight increase. FICA Med, we're going to leave the same for right now. We're still evaluating that. We don't anticipate that to really go up, but we're not quite sure. We're looking at a bunch of different things with that. We also have to have placeholders in place because we're in negotiations for so many units. So we're going to leave that the way it is right this minute. And same with hospital medical insurance. We are working with one other piece for prescription, which might result in a slight decrease in that area. But for right now, I'm leaving it static. When we do convert the bands to bonds, you're going to see a $1.7 million increase, but don't forget it's $800,000 decrease due to not having the band payments anymore. So the net increase is mostly due to the changes in debt service of $616,000. And then what's upcoming, the dates, the next board meeting is on March 16th. We have proposed another meeting on March 30th. The budget hearing again is May 4th, and with our vote on Tuesday, May 17th. Again, we're going to try to target anything that's a significant change to the program. And as we go through the next one on the 16th and the 30th, any additions to program or staffing we'll talk about, but that's what we have right this minute. Does anybody have any questions?
We good? we going over this other one as well for food service, transportation, general?
No, food service we're not doing right now.
Okay.
That has no impact to the general fund at all. So Doug and I will be presenting that later in the budget season.
Okay. Do we need a presentation? Like,
I think it would be nice to update because there's been a lot over the last 2 years with the National School Lunch Program. We can go over what the revenue has been. It won't be a lengthy process, but I do think we need to go through that and see what their net end figure was on their profit and loss statement. Because remember, we do have a significant transfer from the general fund to the cafeteria fund if there are shortages due to negative lunch counts. But we can give an update for that and what the impact has been with the pandemic on our school lunch program.
okay.
Is the school lunch program gonna do it? Be like next year, will it be like it is this year?
Not sure yet.
We
don't know.
don't have the answer for that yet.
Yeah, there's a bunch of jockeying going on. New York State has traditionally handled school lunch program through one department, and they're interested in moving it to a different department, the Ag department, which we're a little concerned about because although it by no means perfect, it's decades of work and systems built in this one other agency within New York State. It would be great if we continued to do free lunch and breakfast for all kids. And there's nationwide, there's a push to continue to maintain that because it's the right thing for children, you know, in our nation. But I don't know, Joanne, if they even projected a deadline of when they would let us know.
They have not yet.
Yeah. And we're trying to plan for summer programming as well, not knowing whether that, traditionally it has been summer programming where this food during the year is actually an extension of our summer food programming. The state generously decided that was something that was beneficial during the pandemic period.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good question.
I agree that it's very important. I think that if there's anything we can do to let our voice be known, you know, I would definitely partake in something like that. I think it's really
The
important.
BOCES superintendents have written a position letter. I think all the BOCES superintendents separately sent a letter to the state agency asking for exactly that.
Great.
But has it come through the state or has been coming through the federal
Federal.
government? Federal.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't know if the federal or the state.
No.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. We have no hearings and petitions for this session. I need a motion for one or all of them, only through 6-7.
6-9.
6, 8, 6, 9 have to be separate.
Roll call, okay. So
Yeah.
I make a motion for 6-1 through 6-7.
Okay, do we have a second, Mr. McFerrin? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Need a motion for 6, 8.
So moved.
Second, Mr. McFerrin? Any discussion? Okay, Sue, you doing roll call?
Sure. Mr. Engel,
Aye.
Mr. McFerrin,
Aye.
Mrs. Hill Burns, Mr. Reveley,
Aye.
Mrs. Holtelling, Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Mr. Heislip,
Aye.
Mrs. Shackleton, Mrs. Klein.
Okay. Motion passes.
Make a motion for 6-9.
Okay, second, Mr. McFerrin, any discussion? Okay. Sue will do roll call for this one as well.
We're going backwards. Mrs. Klein. Mrs. Shackleton.
Aye.
Mr. Heislip.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mrs. Holtelling. Mr. Reveley.
Aye.
Mrs. Hill Burns. Mr. McFerrin.
Aye.
Mr. Engel.
Aye.
Motion passes. Do we want to have a quick discussion? Though this is about the pool filter and some of the work that we're going to be doing kind of on an emergency basis as far as fixing the pool filter, correct?
The filter is a little bit of a patchwork. We've had some excellent craftspeople come in and put it back together over and over again. It's an 18-year-old filtration system in a very heavily used facility, and we had the architect had some specialists come in and do an evaluation. We had initially thought it would just be the filter itself, but obviously, if any of you have a pool or a spa or something, it is the container, it is piping, it is pumps, it is switches and valves and electricity. And they advised it would be nonsensical for us to replace one piece and leave 18-year-old equipment next to it that has been in service 24 hours a day for 18 years. So hence the emergency status, because if it does go, or when it does go, really is where we are, because we've had so many patches on it so far, it would mean out of service. Whenever the season is, whoever's supposed to be in it, we wouldn't have it.
Okay.
So, are we shutting this pool down to do this emergency work?
Summertime. And that's the other important reason. We can control when this work is going to be done now. Now granted, it is obviously going to be reliant on all the crazy supply chain stuff that's happening right now. Whatever is put in there will have to be manufactured, and there have to do some construction around it because of the way that it was built inside the pump room. So there's a few factors, but this is the way for us to get to it prior to that next season, where we know mid-August, we know there's going to be students in the pool again.
So this will just impact external programs that we may have, right? So school
It
year
may.
will essentially finish out as long as nothing happens
Right.
between now and then.
We're trying to avoid our regular school programming, but you're right, adult and continuing ed or open swim may be affected by that, will be affected by that.
Yep.
You have a time frame? Like, is this a 4-week project, 6-week project?
It's funny, I just wrote time frame down. I don't have one, Mr. Reveley, but I will get one. I'll talk to the architect and we'll see if we can come up with an idea. Once something's been deemed an emergency project and it's approved by the boards, we can proceed. So hopefully he'll be able to give us a better idea of a timeline. Our main goal was to not interrupt our students' athletic program in the fall and as minimal a disruption to the community as possible. Keep in mind, in the summertime, we generally shut the pool down for a full 2 weeks every year, and hopefully we'll be able to get it done within the 8-week period. But I'll work on getting a timeline for you.
Is that something we could start at the end of school?
We
even
could
being-
start it as soon as we can.
Right.
So
Like the
if we can
middle of
order
June,
stuff
there's
now,
No
absolutely.
swim classes,
Mhm.
there's no swim teams, do we get an extra jump start on it?
Well, yes, but keep in mind that the demolition of that is in the building, so you've got to be careful of that
Right.
while the students are there. And
Yeah.
but I'll give you a timeline.
Sounds good, thank you. You need a motion for one or all of the personnel consideration.
Motion for 7-1 through 7-10.
Okay, we have a second, Mr. McFerrin. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's passed. 8-1 through 8-5 are informational items only. 9-1, special reports. I have nothing to report. Any other board members that would like to report? Anything?
Haven't seen anything lately.
Okay. I'll turn it over to Dr. Bailey.
Today I had the opportunity to participate with a number of other superintendents, representatives of BOCES, and some students who participate in the CTE program. We participated in a joint BOCES-NYSIT Legislative Lobby Day. So we had 7 virtual meetings with various legislators in the area, including Assemblyman Teague and Senator Breslin. If any of you have ever met Assemblyman Teague, he's a Teague. He is a CTE graduate. He likes to make it known that he is one of the only that he knows of persons in the Assembly who is a graduate of those programs, and he can't be a stronger advocate for that type of work in our communities. But we spent time thanking our legislators for their support of education. This has been a very difficult and trying time. But as Joanna said, this is one of the first years in our entire careers, and those of our colleagues in other districts, where we're not starting from a deficit, with foundation aid being fulfilled and other things that have happened. This is the first time where we're not beginning our budget process by talking about what we're going to have to cut in order to balance the budget. So great conversations, and hearing the students talk about their CTE programs, we know, over and over again, kids saying, I wasn't enjoying school and now I have a reason to go, or saying I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life and now I do. One young lady was doing criminal justice, and she's going to go into the Air Force and try and be an MP in that. One young man said he really wanted to do electrical, but it was full, and he ended up doing network cabling, and he said it is amazing. He knows exactly what he wants to do when he leaves, but it's nothing that we didn't already know. Those CTE programs help provide alternatives to students who may not want to go to college, but regardless, every single one of them said, I know how to be an adult. They treat me like an employee here. I attend to a schedule. I need to dress appropriately, and I need to speak appropriately. And it was just great. And as promised, really it was about the students that run those meetings today. You may have noticed a slight COVID update in the last few days. In the last 3 days. Sunday, the governor did a press conference, announced that today the mask mandate would be removed. We waited for guidance, additional guidance that came out at 9:42 last night, which is what else is changed. And what's important to note is not a lot else has changed right now. And as we have these layered mitigation strategies in school, which include social distancing and hand sanitization, increased airflow and things like that, the other pieces will still remain in place. We've made it through a tremendous wave of the contagion, and we're in great shape in Albany County right now. The chances of getting COVID significantly lower. And one of the things that we talked about today in preparing our staff as best we could is how do you support people who choose to continue to wear a mask? Because there are lots of reasons why people wear masks. For instance, I'm wearing a mask today because someone in my house is extremely sick. Not with COVID, but they're sick. And if I'm sick, I can't come to work because sick people aren't allowed to go to work anymore. You think if you're uncomfortable with me wearing a mask, you should imagine how my family feels while I'm wearing a mask around them. But we still do have staff and students who are wearing masks. And it's important that we are, as adults, we're fair and balanced about that. Because it feels weird now. It feels weird to be in a place and you're the only one doing it. So I feel weird. But at least I was able to tell you why, I'm wearing a mask today. As far as how we're doing in the district, we're down to now maybe 1 to 2 to 3 positive cases a day, down from the hundreds where we were just 2 months ago. So we're in a much, much better place. And when we talk a little bit about end of year ceremonies, obviously this plays an important role in those things that we're planning, because in the trajectory we're going right now, where Albany County has finally moved down to low. And the only reason, by the way, there were 2 counties in New York State that were not, 2 counties in our area that were not at low, and it's because of our hospitalization rate in Albany County. It's not because of our transmission, it's because of the number of people that we have in the hospital. So we are in a good place. We will be sending out a further communication to families tomorrow. Just to reiterate, we want our students to be safe. If you're sick, stay home. You can test to return if you are sick. You don't have to stay out 10 days. And tests are available. Obviously, we have lots of tests available. If you are returning from having COVID and you come back after the 5th day, and this is the one definite confusing part for people, if you come back from having COVID, you're allowed to return on the 6th day now. So if you're diagnosed on a Monday, you can return the following Monday. You must wear a mask on days 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That is the only remaining mandate from the Department of Health. So we'll be communicating that with families. And in all honesty, if a family's not comfortable with their child wearing a mask, they can stay out for the 10 days and come back on the 11th day. But it's the only mandate that's still left. And we hope that people are able to navigate that safely. Do you have any questions about where we are with the COVID right now? About COVID? We are working on a new traffic pattern for Peter B. The reason I mention that is good for them. The families of Peter B. and the staff have struggled with the awkwardness of Van Hosen and trying to get our students out there to the curb in order to get in the cars to either be dropped off or picked up. With cooperation from the village, we have a way to try and move the vehicles closer to the building. We were waylaid with some of the storms last week, but we're going to be doing a little bit of construction and building a new road from the back corner of the building near the band room over to the basketball court. Right now it's a walkway, a very poorly maintained walkway that students use when they go to get in their parents' cars. And we're going to just enlarge that with crushed stone right now, so that we can use it as a roadway and bring the cars to the building instead of the children to the road. The village has given us permission for a cut in there so the vehicles can pull out down near the basketball court. We anticipate 2 great wins from it, the process being quicker and the students being safer. They're not having to walk all the way down to Van Hosen, which they've been doing essentially for a year and a half now. And, you know, thanks to Bill and Jason, we went down there and stood in a spot in the mud, in the gravel, and said, how are we going to fix this problem? Because it's not sufficient, and it's inconvenient for families. So you'll see a little bit of construction, and we hope that when it gets warm enough weather, the village again may cooperate with us and help us pave that portion, as well as the apron along Van Hosen, so that we permanently have parking for when there's baseball games along Van Hosen, because we use that field for our varsity games and sometimes JV. And also, you know, less mud and muck along that area. So if you see equipment over there in the next few days, if it hasn't happened already, that's what's going on. Which brings me to the construction project. We talked at the board level about trying to arrange for a small-scale project for our May vote, so we could do a referendum in May. And we've worked with our architect and our building conditions survey, as well as our buildings and grounds committee, to develop a list of things that were easy to get to, because really what we're talking about now is timeline. It takes a lot to get to a construction project. It requires approval from planning, state aid planning, where the architect makes a proposal, estimates some costs, and potentially tells them the scope of the work. And the work that takes the longest is interior infrastructure work. Like they're going to do wiring, plumbing. They're going to do that kind of work. It is a much longer span of time to get approval. So the work that we're primarily focused on is asbestos abatement in the buildings, which, you know, is ongoing. We've got 50-plus-year-old buildings. There's a lot of asbestos in the tiles. They've been covered up, or they just get waxed over so that there's no issues with them. But by doing some abatement, which is easy to get to and doesn't require a lot of, you know, engineering planning, we're able to get to do some of the work outside that we need to do. And some of the things that are included in that are like the demolition of the concession stand that we've abandoned 4 or 5 years ago, or longer, excuse me, maybe longer than that, we're not allowed to enter and it needs to be taken down. And then the resultant from that is also improvements to the electrical there, because right now part of the electrical in the field is inside that building. We have additional things for the pool that we've been talking about, including the air filtration, the desert air system, which takes all the moisture out of the air. And working on the press box, which is there are some things on there that need some significant work, some of the exterior walls and things like that. The middle school and high school have historically had some electrical issues where we've had to actually close school because of the main lines from the road malfunctioning. And we're working with utility companies. We want to replace those lines, and especially the one that goes from the farthest north corner of our campus all the way around the buildings over to the back of the middle school. We own those lines, and we own the transformer that's behind the middle school. It is much more favorable for the utility company to own those. So that's why I say we're in negotiations with them, trying to figure out how to hand that over. But we know that the installation will require a significant capital improvement, but that's an infrastructure that, you know, is 50 years old. We know if we don't have solid, reliable electricity going into the building, everything else we do is of no use. So the electrical improvements, some water improvements, and we didn't quite finish some of the exterior improvements around Peter B. We need drainage around that playground because it's pretty consistently underwater. And we didn't finish some of the items out on the baseball field. We didn't do dugouts or a fence out there. So along with the improvements, so that's pretty to the scope of what we're thinking of for this small project. But we also have money from Lafarge, where through an agreement they've been giving us money annually that is intended to be spent on exterior or beautification or improvements of our buildings. Similar to what we talked about at the last meeting, Both of our playgrounds need attention. Peter B's, the equipment is okay. The property where it sits is underwater. Students are standing in the mud. We have to put a lot of wood chips down just to make sure that they're not standing in water. And when it rains, all bets are off, right? So we've got the drainage as part of this project, but we're intending to use some of our Lafarge monies to help with the improvements for the playground at Peter B and at Becker, where we know that both of them need some capital improvements there. The benefit of that is that money is already in hand. It does, some of it will need some state aid planning approval, but again, that's very low-level planning. It's not really intricate infrastructure. So we're hoping to be able to get to that work sooner than later. It's not a 2 years from now project. This is work that we can begin now, including like paving at Becker, the playground at Becker. That's something that we can get to very quickly, and it may not even require state aid planning. I'm not sure. So there are some other things that we plan on getting to, and when we go to the taxpayers in May, we will share the whole package with them. We want them to know that this is about not only what's best for our students, but what's best for our community. All of our playgrounds and those exterior facilities are used by people well beyond the scope of the school day, and we invite that. And we want them to be in the best condition possible.
So we're going to put this out, our hope is to put this out in May.
Yes.
What is the timeline? I know there's a lot of other items on our list or our project that the architect has started to work on. What is our timeline for the next list of projects or things that we want to work on, and then possibly another vote down the road? Do we have a timeline? Are we like 6 months, another year? I know there were a lot of things that came up in our 5-year project, our 5-year building survey that he's still going through, but do we have a timeline?
We estimated with good and conservative planning, we could, as early as November, go out with a larger referendum.
Okay.
Again, it's about a 3-month lead time. So that would mean between now and essentially June or July, we would make decisions about what we thought was important. Then the architect would work on all of the approval processes so that he could submit by August and September. And then we would know, we would have approval to go to a referendum. But I agree, and Teddy, that's a good point, because in addition to the stuff that's on this list and the other exterior improvements, we want to be forthright with people and say, here are some larger scale things. Oh, I forgot to mention some of the heat exchangers inside our buildings as well. Again, you know, the library's from 2004, but if we were in any other room in this building, you'd be looking at a nearly 60-year-old heater vent. I don't know, none of us probably have a 60-year-old furnace in our basement, so replacing this equipment, which we can't get the parts for very easily, it's a quality of life issue for our kids. But telling people what our long-term plans are will be a part of this as well. So it's not like a surprise where we haven't voted on something in May and they're like, whoa, we just voted on something. Why are we voting on something again? So we'll do our best to project out what that looks like. Is there anything else?
One of the things you have here is more asbestos abatement. Do you have an idea, because it's part of every project we seem to be doing, and every time we go into a new area, do you have any idea percentages of like where we are in kind of freeing the district of this?
We actually are required by law to have a asbestos map, a plan of everywhere there still is asbestos in our district, so we can find out for you. It does seem never ending, I agree with you. It does every turn. The one benefit though, I just said asbestos and benefit in the same sentence. The one benefit of abatement is that in order for schools to receive aid on construction that's occurring outside of a building, some construction must occur in a classroom.
Inside, correct.
So as we see these abatement projects stretched out over a long span of time, it actually allows us to receive our aid on the other projects that we're doing as well. It's not like we're waiting as long as possible to see that it gets done, because for instance, I mean, this is really sparked from, there's 1 or 2 areas in a building where it's become problematic or a little problematic, but what we know is, let's say from here to the front row of chairs is the area we want to replace, but the asbestos goes all the way out into the hallway. It is nonsensical to build a tent to, hire the people to do the air filtration outside and have them stop right there at the front of those chairs. We had the same thing here in the hallway at the high school. We just needed to do the hallway, we just needed to do a classroom in order to put the new flooring in the band room. But it was stupid to not do the hallway and the entire area because we were there doing it. So we would usually never bring someone to do one classroom, which is why you see them in groups of 6. But
So this is all, the entire classroom has to be removed?
No, what you see here,
There's
it's-
6 classrooms?
right, it's the front side of both of the elementary schools. On the second floor, you have that entire classroom wing. They would get all of the asbestos abatement as well as new air handling units in those rooms, as well as the casework and any other changes that goes into that.
Yeah, the only
And-
way to get the
right.
ventilators, they gotta take the tile, the ventilators.
You
and-
have to, if we're gonna
and
do
so
it, we have to
one-
do it the right way.
Yeah.
To your question, Tina, we have a triannual review that we're just in the process now of doing for our asbestos plan, so we can give you a detailed, we can let you know what those are. But there are also plans in each one of the buildings, so when somebody comes into this building, they can find out where any asbestos-containing materials are.
Thank you.
Okay.
So our board meetings this year were on Wednesday, our board meetings on last year were on a Wednesday. Sue has been working on developing our calendar for next year. I wanted to check with the board their comfort level or their interest in continuing on Wednesdays. The other thing that we've scheduled is, we've scheduled 2 meetings a month, similar to the process that we're using now. So basically, every month next year, and they're basically spaced apart every 2 weeks. Of course, there are some months where the vacation is in a weird spot, so it's forcing us to do maybe a first week and a fourth week, and then a first week and a third week. Are we still interested in staying on Wednesdays?
Fine. Tracy, we have basketball every Tuesday. We have basketball every Tuesday.
I know, well, I have soccer every Wednesday.
Okay, so Tuesdays in the fall, Wednesdays in the spring, or winter time.
Wednesdays are fine, it's fine.
The 2 a month is okay, the way the process we've been using now.
You don't wanna go to 3 or something, you wanna go to 1 or?
Different schools do different things. Some have 1 a month, but that's a long time. I mean, from a business perspective, it's a long time sometimes for us to wait to take action. And we're used to 2.
Can we do one in person and one virtual?
Well, that's a good question. Well, I don't know if it'll be available to us. We can vote on that in the fall.
I think we did 1 a month in the summer, right?
That is true.
Through October or something, I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, we did like 1 in August, and we might have done 2 in,
I think 2 in
sorry,
September.
1 in July and maybe 2
One
in
in
August.
July.
What if you did every 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jason just asked, what if we did 1 every 3 weeks? So it would be the first week, the third week, the second week.
The problem then is it interferes with your other monthly meetings that are always on the first or the first Tuesday or the second Tuesday.
Whoa,
Yeah.
It makes me
Say to
nervous.
that.
the rookies, first
Shut him off.
Well, we'll do some experimenting. We'll,
Plan so far in advance. I don't know what the heck's going on next year.
I know, really.
Every 2 weeks
We
is
ask about
perfect.
next week.
Person told me on Monday and asked if we can do Wednesday, and I'm giving you a thumbs up. I know what's going on next year. Yeah,
Wednesdays are so good for you?
plan everything on those nights.
2 weeks from now, I'll bring you, we'll bring an example of what that would look like. We'll look at the 3-week thing and see what happens, Jason. What will happen,
You said that would help?
How about 3.5 weeks?
Jason's
How about
not
2
on
and a
board
quarter
anymore.
weeks?
Yeah, hey, Jason, you're off anyway, so what do you?
Hey, it may help us.
Oh.
Well, you said
Oh, it's right. I'd forgotten about that little.
it's not, you know, 2 and 3 weeks, but every 3 weeks is not 1 month. Versus every 2 weeks, it's 2 a month. Then you're at least at 1 a month, but it's every 3 weeks.
I'm gonna need you to do that, put that in the whiteboard. We take all possibilities.
I did have one question about, we talked about updating the press box, stuff like that. Like, we have to make sure that we establish plans to maintain that, right? So it's a big investment that we're doing. Certainly we got there by neglect after games, neglect in the winter season and stuff like that. We can't maintain that type of behavior, right? So whatever we're going to do investment-wise, every time we do these things at the district, we need to make sure that there's ownership and responsibility, right? So we've done that to protect, you know, the football field. We've got a fence. We made sure people can't go out there and drive on it, those types of things, right? On the side field, we're putting stones and we're putting, you know, at some point, some wood to protect those fields. So we have to keep thinking along those lines and make sure we're protecting these investments. So I just ask that you do the same thing with this. There is some sort of protocol and responsibilities that people understand and adhere to.
And Dr. Bird, along with that too, taking a step back, when people do see this, I don't know if this is public yet, if anybody else has seen this small list for project, very, very sports orientated, you know, which affects a good portion of our community. But I also do think that the playgrounds are an immediate effect on thousands or 1,000, you know, children right off the bat. You did confuse me though. You said that we were going to maybe use some of the Lafarge money for both of those playgrounds, drainage at one and redoing it at A.W. Becker.
The drainage is in here for Peterby.
Right. So that wouldn't be then.
Lafarge money stuff wouldn't be.
Wouldn't be for the drainage. Lafarge would be earmarked right now for specifically for Becker.
Yeah, and for
and other things. I'm just, because I was confused because you said it and it was on this sheet. I just wanted to clarify that.
The one thing we worry about is the timeline for there, because as we talked about, Pete, it goes to referendum in May.
Right, and it's still years down, right? So then why have it on here when I just pull it?
Well, the one difference is though, I mean, this is different than a literal construction project. There is the possibility that work could be completed, could be bid and completed in the summertime. It needs to be completed before any more capital improvements happen to that playground.
Right, but this still has to go through state ed, right?
Yeah.
Summertime, what, summer 2025?
Well, but the plans
realistically, right?
No, some of this stuff
Next
goes
summer.
through very quick.
Yeah.
Some of it can.
Some of this can go through quick. That's the.
Oh,
these
okay.
things
Oh, I thought
state
it
ed-
all had to go in as one. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, like state ed, like sometimes these projects, he said that he could get them through in 2-3 months versus
Okay.
a year.
No electric or plumbing or.
Correct.
Right,
there's
it's
certain
not that
things.
M&E and all that other stuff
Yeah.
that goes with it.
This would only be for dollars and what
Yeah.
we would vote on, like in May as a referendum, but
Then
it doesn't
why-
mean we would have to spend the money. So if we put a vote out for $3 million and we only spend 2.5, then it's fine, it's just coming up with the amount. So if we do things this summer and spend money, then we wouldn't have to use that money we voted on. It is kind of how it would go, correct?
So what will happen is the next time we meet on the 16th, I'll talk about this, I butted ahead, I'm going to take one more piece. We will vote on another two resolutions like we did this evening. There will be a SECRA, which is the State Environmental Quality Assurance Act, and there will also be a referendum that will outline what the possible project is, and it'll go through that, and we'll do that now because we still are under the same guidelines that we have to advertise a project the same 4 times before the vote. It has to be 45 days, so that's why it's important we would do that at the 16th. This will be a work in progress. And yes, this will be one thing that we'll go through. A whole meeting will be identified on the project and what it will contain. But to your point, there might be pieces of that project that will get earlier approval from SED than some of the other pieces, like the asbestos abatement. That will be something that will take a few weeks. But they can, with our architect's help, they can sometimes push things like the site work through a little bit quicker. But again, that's the process that
I
we'll
just
go
need
through.
to ask, then why wouldn't the A.W. Becker playground have a line on this sheet?
Because that's gonna be done now. We don't need SED approval for that.
Okay, but for something like drainage, you would need,
Yeah, but they shouldn't need the same level of drainage that
Gotcha.
A.W. Becker does.
Okay,
We are able
okay.
to give them, or set aside a set number of funds, whatever it can be to offset the cost of an A.W. Becker playground. We can give them the money, we can start that now.
okay, great, thank you.
The delay would be in ordering whatever to decide and what the actual budget is. So is it piecemeal? We'll do some this year, some the following year, but that's what it can be identified for. And it does not need SED approval.
Thanks.
And the only last thing I had is we've been talking about end of year events, and as I mentioned, with the lowering of the COVID numbers in the region, obviously it's going to make the end of year planning so much easier. So I gave this sample. Please don't share this, but I gave you this sample of just what we're thinking because, as you said, there's like conspiracy theory about there's not going to be a prom, there's not going to be a graduation, there's not going to be. But we want to kind of play up that this is an opportunity for us to be able to reconvene, to come back together and be families and be communities together. So this is what Deirdre conceptualized from communications of what that might look like, even if we don't know solid dates, and even if we don't know, even if some things may change, offering people hope is kind of important. Now, the ones that we know are very important. A graduation date, parents are coming into town, grandparents are coming into town, you're planning for parties or whatever. Those that are hard, moving up days and graduation, will make sure they're rigid, and that if anything goes out, it is the actual time and date. But other things like a color run or something like that, we can be more flexible on. But this is one of the things we were thinking about for how we project out to the community, that we're open. We're here and we're a part of the community.
I think it's very important to get that out. I think people need to see that on the sign. They need to see all of that.
Yes.
It's a lot of work to change it on the sign there.
Speaking of which, the Peter B sign, the digital sign, that's
Yes.
easy to switch, still said the next Board of Ed meeting was February 16th, as of 4 o'clock today.
Excellent.
So I felt a little late.
You're a year early.
Yeah.
Brian?
Yes.
And the stuff that we're looking to reinstitute, would we think about reinstituting having the seniors go to the grade schools like they have in the past? I know that with COVID we weren't doing that, but I think be a great thing
No question.
to do. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Can we bring the band and the chorus back to graduation, please? Because graduation without them there is not the same.
Yes. And they're eager to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we'll turn it over to Mr. Engel.
I don't have much.
Yes. Okay, we'll turn it
I'll
over
be
to
like
Joyce.
Mr.
Nice she's here.
Be like Mr. Dobson and just go right for it because of winter break. 3 things. So we had on Thursday over break, the Regional Food Bank and Catholic Charities mobile outreach came to campus, and our teachers and our administrators and families helped support families and community members in need. So that was a great outreach. It was something that I really showed the partnerships that we have, and I think that was really great. Secondly, last year we talked about kind of this maple sugaring growth, pun intended, that started to occur, and today Peter B. started tapping trees, and tomorrow is A.W. Becker. So it's again a growing program, I guess. And then lastly, 2 years without an in-person drama. This coming weekend is Newsies, March 11th, 12th, and 13th. So mark your calendar. This is their play. Yep.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about that because it wasn't on the...
Yeah, that was on my list too.
So looking forward to that. Check the website regarding tickets. There are tickets you can pre-order, and then there are tickets you can buy at the door. I'm not sure if Dr. Bailey, if you know any other restrictions around that. I don't think there is.
Not at this time.
Not at this
Great.
time. So
Invite all your friends.
So me.
Okay.
If there's social distancing, there's gotta be restrictions on numbers, because those seats are not 3 feet apart.
Yeah, they doing...
Every other seat, right. All right, so.
check the website.
Here's my my bottom line. In all honesty, in concert to the same way, we've restricted it to reach half capacity, and the rule of thumb for me is always keeping the students away from the public. That's my one limitation. In all honesty, because listen, I don't mean to be mean, but if my mother comes and Fred's mother comes and they give code to each other, I can still have school tomorrow. And I don't want your mom to have code.
Yours.
My mom turned 82 yesterday. I don't want her to have it either. The baseline is we always keep the students away from the public. Other than that, where in the universe, where in the world are people mandated to be separated? We go everywhere right now.
I understand and I agree. I just think it's kind of ridiculous that they keep saying, we're still social distancing, but we're not social distancing.
My kids are, and that's what's important.
They what?
I want the children here to be socially distanced.
Well, we want them to, but they're not.
I'm not in charge of the public.
I get that, but they're not. The kids are not either. I mean, I work in a school. I know this. We keep saying, yes, we have to social distance. We have to do it. We don't do it. We haven't done it in a long time.
The elementary schools are excellent, very, very good at it.
Well, high school and middle school are absolutely not, I can tell you that for sure, so.
So
Anybody at a candy bar?
Ray brings up an excellent point, and in talking to staff today and the music department and things like that, really what we are trying to do is every chance we can, we're trying to mitigate. And sometimes we can't. But if we can control it 4 times out of 5, that's exactly what we're going to try and do, because that's one less chance that someone would be exposed. And if we can, trace it, that's important too. But I understand.
I don't have as much issue with what we're doing as what's being said. It keeps coming down from the governor and from state ed, social distance, social distance, social distance, but we're not doing it. So if they would just stop saying it and say, okay, we're gonna get back to normal and we're just gonna try to be careful, that would make a lot more sense. Otherwise, it makes us seem like hypocrites.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay, Mrs. Murray.
Fred, I think I saw today another step of normalization is the plaza is going to have the.
Music in our schools month.
Right, the Music in Our Schools month, they're gonna, like the jazz bands, I think Ravena is the 21st, Monday the 21st.
Our jazz ensemble's going down, performance at 10:30, I believe. Yeah, we'll put something out to the community when that gets closer to. But you're right, this is a big deal for us to go back down. Usually the chorus and the band go, this year it's the jazz ensemble. Yeah.
Okay,
It's a great event.
Mrs. Moran.
I do have a couple of things. It seems like a perfect storm this year, so we didn't do transportation today, and I don't want you to think it's because I didn't want to do it, but we're also working on several different things. Jason and I are working to come up with the impact of the rising cost of fuel and our bus fleet. We have some challenges with negotiations, and we all know that driver shortages are an issue, and where are we going to be competitive for salaries? So that's taking some of our time as we develop the transportation budget. I should have pointed out, as I went through the presentation, you'll notice that under bus ban principal, it's a reduction of $82,000. And what that's the direct result of this Board of Education's commitment to a every year bus replacement plan. When I came here, that second year, we had to buy 10 buses. So that large debt service payment 5 years later has now come off, and we are going to go to much more level debt. Now, interest figures might increase that, but I'll go through that as we do the bus presentation. But that's just some of what we've been trying to get through. Jason and I are also meeting with New York Bus Sales this year. We're meeting with them tomorrow, actually. Our plan is to purchase three 65-passenger buses and 1 microbus, which gets us a 14-passenger, student passenger bus. Again, keeping within that limit that we don't want to go over as far as our total cost. But we have some concerns with the buses we've been getting, so that's why we're meeting tomorrow to determine, are we going to go with their bus? We have some mechanics that we have some concerns about the warranty work, so we're meeting about that tomorrow. We'll have a finalized answer the next time we meet. The audit committee, I would ask that we put that off for 2 more weeks. We were scheduled for this coming Friday. We'd like to do that, push that to the 18th. And the other thing I'd like to draw attention to is the Ravena Board of Trustees we've been working together. They maintain our office building, the 2nd floor. We have some carpet that needs to be replaced, so we worked out a deal with an intermunicipal agreement with them. We're going to get 3 months of no rent, and we are going to get carpet to replace the 2 offices that need carpet replacement. It can't be the floors because they were glued down, so it's not like something that they're interested in, sanding down. So we're going to redo the carpet. They're going to give us 3 months of free rent, which is a nice deal. It's almost an even Steven, but thanks to them and their consideration for that, so that'll be happening. And it's just been a busy season. It seems like a perfect storm for negotiations, budgeting, fuel cost increases, and everything. So I appreciate your patience.
Thank you. New business items. Anyone have anything they would like to bring up?
Please don't send this schedule to your parents. This is just a demonstrator. I don't want people to think that this is set in stone, Okay, just saying.
No
Don't put it
Facebook
on your
post?
refrigerator, that's all I'm saying.
Post it.
Oh, come on.
And your Instagram account too? Follow Bill at his.
The graduation date must be set by now, right?
That is set.
Okay.
Yeah, June 24th. At the plaza, correct?
Correct. Back at the convention center.
Oh, really?
The first time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Old business items. We have certain things that we want to go over, questions about certain items on this. I know we spoke about a few of these last meeting. You want to get rid of some of the ones we talked about last
We
meeting?
can get rid of the next meeting.
Oh, which one?
We can get rid of the next meeting. See?
District-wide Wi-Fi, I know we've talked about that a few times. You guys want to remove that one? Or we want? Are we good with removing?
School supplies, I mean, we're,
School supplies, we definitely, I think.
we can get rid of that.
Child care, go. Guidance department, go.
Bus
Solar,
stop cameras,
Solar panels should stay.
yeah, it's been a while.
I think the dugout.
We can get rid of that one, that's over on the other
Budget,
list.
Yep.
Yeah,
The bus stop cameras, leave that one on too.
okay. Career tech program, we probably should leave that on, we're still kinda going through it, CNI, right? Yeah. Career cafe, we gonna leave that on or get an update, I guess, on that? Right, okay. And guidance for planning ahead for school, let's get that one.
Well, Brian just gave us a list of it, of your activities.
There it is,
It's
written
out
in
there.
stone.
It's already posted.
Do you know that, Sue? We're down to that. Okay.
Two more.
Email students.
Email to students from other than RCS, we talked about that before, I know we're working on that.
The only thing I didn't get for you is that when they're turning that on. I'll find that out, and I'll let you know next time.
And then rural internet access,
You can leave that one on, because that was something that Tina asked about, and I think
last
we're
meeting.
gonna look at that.
Yeah, and I have to share the data with you that I shared with Supervisor McHugh.
Okay, CNI committee meeting, minutes are attached. Anything you want to talk about there? No, okay. Policy adoption review, we have none. Hearings and petitions, we do have one this session. Audrey June.
So I just have some inquisitive questions. My neighbor Frank McDonough and I have noticed that there are trees tagged by our properties. So we are curious what is going on.
No, this is,
I put a call into you a couple days ago, but you didn't call me back.
My secretary was seeking information for you around why there were surveyors there.
So there's trees that are all taped with yellow, so meaning that they've been surveyed,
I have no idea.
and it's on the school property. So
So I just want to make sure I understand, right?
Oh, yeah.
While I'm talking.
Yeah, we actually, could you do us a favor? Because we usually don't respond to people at the podium. It's an opportunity for you to address the board with questions or concerns, but we don't usually enter into a dialogue.
okay.
But we would be happy to call you and fill you in on Fred was just speaking to me today about what they're planning on doing, or if they're planning on doing for a nature trail, yeah. So, but we'll gladly call you and tell you what their plans are. And we're very sensitive about, I talked all that time about our schools being the center of the community. As part of that, we obviously have a responsibility to the neighbors of our school buildings as well. But
So, yeah, like if you could, I don't know, maybe let us be part of your committee on whatever it is that you're thinking about doing, we would really truly appreciate that. And so, yeah, so if you could give me a call, we could chit chat and let us kind of help out a little bit too, so that it all works out for everybody.
Sounds good.
sure.
Thank you.
thank you.
Audrey.
Thanks, Audrey.
Upcoming activities, we're gonna move the finance meeting 2 weeks, correct?
And that would be March
18th, you'll send that out. Next BOE meeting is March 16th. We do have the play coming up on 3/11, I think, 3/12, 3/13, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
7 o'clock for the 11th and 12th. 2 p.m. for the 13th, I believe.
Okay. Nothing else. We have no reason for you got something else? Oh.
No, I'm ready for the motion to
No
adjourn.
reason for executive session. Motion to adjourn the meeting. Mr. McFerrin, Mrs. Hoteling, all in favor? All right.